My name is Linda Carter, and I am a member of the Union County Board of Chosen Freeholders. Before we begin today's program, I'd like to take an opportunity to welcome all of you here today. You've taken a great leap, you've taken a great opportunity, and for you to be here to take your time away from your schedule, I applaud you, so thank you so much. I'd also like to take an opportunity to recognize some of our special visitors that we have here today. Many of you all will get to see our presenters as you go throughout the day through your sessions. But as we start, I'd like to recognize our Deputy County Manager, Bill Reyes. I believe he's here. We also have the Director of Economic Development from Plainfield, Mr. Sanchez is here. The BA, our business administrator from Rawway, Sharon Roundtree, is in the audience with us. Mayor Colleen Marr of Fanwood is here with us today. Our Union County Clerk, Joanne Rajapi, is here with us today. We also have, let me make sure I got everybody now. We also have our my colleagues on my freeholder board. I'd like to introduce them. I'll start with freeholder Betty Jane Kowalski, freeholder Al Marabella, and also introducing him to give you his special greetings, I'm going to introduce our chairman, Mohammed Jallow.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Union County Women Means Business Summit. My name is Mohammed Jallow, and I am the chairman of the Union County Board of Chosen Freeholders. And throughout history, there have been women daring, creative, and ingenious that have paved the way to become an inspiration for women to educate themselves and compete for their place in the business world. I was reminded of this while reading the diary of a milliner by Belle Otis, a woman who shortly after the Civil War contemplated in her diary about working and how necessity demanded it from women and men alike, no matter how unfashionable it seemed for women of the day. And given the option of finding a salaried job or embarking on starting a business of her own, Belle Otis took the leap of faith to become an entrepreneur, claiming that she was as capable of managing a business and obtaining all the profits of it as the one who might employ her. She went on to talk about how frightening the prospect was, but said that for her, business would be independence. Fast forward 150 years since Belle Otis's diary was first published, and now we live in a world where working women are more than just fashionable, but admired, revered, and growing in record numbers. I have to take this opportunity to acknowledge in the audience one of the women I admire most in my life, my mother, who is somewhere in the room. I believe, can she? It's easier if you stand. Hey. There you go. A woman whose vigor, dedication, and passion for work and independence is an inspiration to me. As I was growing up, my mother and my aunts all were obtaining their master's degree while we were in school. So in addition to working a important position, I believe director of the laboratory at UMD&J, and working in a position that was highly stressful and managing 4 very good kids. Right? So I'm sure we weren't so hard. She went to school, and I witnessed this growing up, not just with her, but with my aunts, and it was a certain normalcy to it that created a situation in my mind where I knew, regardless of how terrible I was doing in school at the moment, that I had a goal, and my goal was to be like these women that I had seen be so successful despite the obstacles, despite the obligations, and despite all the hardships. She then went on to follow me, I guess, to law school, and I guess I wasn't doing it right. And she came to law school, and now I'm going to really get in trouble, at the age of 50. And I saw that. I'm in trouble. All right. I'll stop soon. But her inspiration, I have another aunt who graduated with her PhD probably at the age of 55, and just watching them continue on their path, go from, working for one company and then opening their own businesses. Now today my mother is my law partner at the firm of Jallo and Jallo, where we handle all legal services. And, it's just an inspiration to watch. And anytime that I think that there's something that I can't overcome, or I'm too busy, or there's something that I can't handle, I think about the women that I've seen in my life and the truly extraordinary things that they have overcome to reach where they are in their life. Between 1997 and 2007, the number of women-owned businesses has grown in this country twice as fast as their male counterparts and has added over 500,000 jobs to the market, which is a testament to women's impact on the economy. Right? We're looking for new jobs, we're looking for job creation. We need to look to women because that's where job creation is happening. Thank you. As I began my term earlier this year as freeholder chairman, in discussing with the freeholder board what we wanted to accomplish this year, we discussed infrastructure. We discussed building our workforce, and I already told you the connection between the workforce and women. We discussed building families and creating family success centers. We discussed building and have actually, I think just the last freeholder meeting voted and passed a resolution assisting with childcare for working families, right? Because that's one of the major glass ceilings and hurdles that people have to overcome, right? The federal government has provides funding for people who are below a certain financial threshold, right? And that's a very low number, right? But there are so many people who are working and making $40,000 and $50,000 and $60,000, where 60% of their income goes to childcare. Why work, right? If 60% of your income has to go to childcare, it begs the question, right? And so what we've been able to do through the 4 C's is create a program where we will supplement for working families some of that childcare over and above what the federal government does. We're trying to create that gap so that people can work, and so that we can create the type of situation where more people are going to work and don't have to worry so much about being able to afford childcare. We're doing, I wanted to plug this also, since I had a group of professionals in the room and business owners, et cetera. I felt the need to do this. We have our one stop at the County of Union. At that one stop, we employ people throughout the entire county who are in need of jobs. You can find it on our website at ucnj.org. There's 2 things there that I'd like to invite you all to do. One is if you have a job in your office, right, and you need to hire somebody, we provide the training, soft skills, for a lot of our employees there. And if you can find it in your hearts or your pocketbooks or whatever the case may be to hire a few of those people that we have coming through the one stop, I promise you won't be disappointed. We are training them with soft skills so that they're already trained for the new types of technologies and things in the workforce to this day. We also have a program called Cinderella's Closet, I believe, and it's to provide clothing for women who are applying for jobs and have just embarked to work in the workforce. So if you have clothes that no longer, it's not coming out right. If you have clothes that you, if you have clothes that you like to donate, you don't need them anymore, right? Please donate it. That's a nice save. Please donate to Cinderella's Closet there. As you can see, we have a lot of things in the work. I want to thank the members of the committee who put this together. This is always an exciting event to network, to learn, to build and grow, and I'm very happy to be a part of it, and I know that the Freeholder Board is very happy to sponsor and put together this event once again. So thank you all for your time and welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Jallo. All right, so we are very pleased to be joined this year's event by Kristina Hahn. Ms. Hahn is truly an Ms. Hahn is truly an inspiring example of a person who excelled in a fast-paced, ever-changing, and globalized work environment. Kristina has been at the forefront of online live streaming, brokering the deal between YouTube, Vivo, and American Express to create the award-winning Unstaged music series. Kristina joined Google in 2006 when they launched the Google Audio platform. She facilitated the development of bringing efficiency and accountability to offline media. Prior to joining the consumer packaged goods team, she spent 6 years working with financial services, marketers, and 2 years working in the automotive vertical, educating parts and services companies on the power of online marketing. As you can see, she has a huge resume, and truly we are excited to have her here with us today. As the head of consumer packaged goods, Kristina's team partners with consumer packaged goods companies to design solutions that solve their business challenges. She has helped revolutionize marketing in a digital age, and so it is an honor. It's an honor, a privilege, to truly introduce our speaker today, Ms. Kristina Hahn.
Well, welcome everyone, and I'd like to thank Freeholder Chairman Jallo and the Union County Freeholder Board for having me here. It's an honor and privilege to be here. I am a Jersey girl, very proud to be from New Jersey. I grew up in Bergen County, and I attended Syracuse University. What I figured I would do is give you just a little background on myself, and then take you through just some of the things I've learned along the way in my career path. And then I'd love to open it up to Q&A, so definitely think about your questions, and I hope that you have some when I close. So as I said, I went to Syracuse University. I majored in broadcast journalism and political science. I thought I was going to be the next Joan Lunden. Who in the room remembers Joan Lunden on Good Morning America? I can say that in this room. At Google, the audiences are usually quite young, and when I say Joan Lunden, they don't know who I'm talking about. So yeah, I double majored in political science, figuring I would follow political campaigns, and that was the kind of news that I would do. And I ended up going abroad to Italy in a study abroad program. And I came back and realized I didn't really love the news. And I had a professor who turned to me and said, I think you should consider a career in sales. So I did some internships in sales. And there was some advice that I got, and I share this advice with every student that I mentor, but I think it's even relevant at any point in your life. There was someone who came and spoke to me at Syracuse who said, if you know what you want to do, be willing to go anywhere. If you know where you want to be willing to do anything. And I knew that I wanted to be back in New Jersey. I knew that I wanted to be back in the New York area, and I knew that by doing that, I was not going to be able to be on air on a New York television station. If I wanted to do that world, I was going to have to go to South Bend, Indiana, and that was just not going to happen. So I pivot. I read a great book called Do What You Are at the time, and I made a pivot in choice of what my future path was going to be. And networked. I was so happy to hear Freeholder Carter talk about networking, using the networking skills that I had learned at university and making connections that I had there. I reached out to some people in the media industry and ended up getting my first job in radio advertising sales. And I did that for 6 years, and it was great. It was a tremendous experience. And at that time, that was the early 2000s, and we had the big dot-com bust. So it had looked like I had made a great career move going into traditional media, because a lot of friends that had gone into the online media world, they were out of jobs. So I hit a point though where I realized things were changing. The internet was really changing the world, and I needed to be a part of it. And Google had launched a platform called Google Audio, and they were looking for people with radio experience. Again, I networked and that was what was able to get me in the door. And I ended up starting with Google 9 years ago. And at the time, I thought it was a risk. I remember sitting on the beach on the Jersey Shore, reading the book, The Google Story, because I was like, is this company really making money? And after reading the book, I realized it would be a risk for me to stay where I was. And I decided to take the plunge and go all in at Google. So I've been there for 9 years, as I said, and here's just a few things that I wanted to share with you that I've learned along the way. So on balance, when people talk about work-life balance, I take a different approach. I come from the school of thought of there is no work-life balance. In my opinion, it's all about really being able to give yourself permission to make boundaries, to set boundaries in order to really, make time for the things that you are passionate about. And those things, for some people, it might be their children, but I do not have children yet. And for me, I always say yoga is my kids. And I think it's equally important that you make time for things and set boundaries so that you can really enjoy those passions. That I can leave early from work in order to go to the yoga class or come in late. And I encourage everyone to really think about that and think about the environment that you work in and make sure that you're encouraging that. Because work-life balance to me is not just about balancing children, it's about balancing your life and really making sure you're getting everything that you want out of your life. And I think it's just an acceptance that you really can't do it all and to not hold yourself to an unrealistic standard because it's not possible to do it all. A friend of mine just recently went to a mindfulness seminar, and she said that in the seminar they talked about removing the word should from your vocabulary because you constantly say, I should do this, I should do that. No, you shouldn't. You can't do everything. It's impossible. You have to really, knocking over water. I talk with my hands. You have to really think about what are the things that are really going to be the most important to you and what are those passions and how can you set the boundaries in order to allow yourself to make those things happen. So one of the things that we did at Google, we realized we take a lot of surveys and we get a lot of feedback from our teams, and we noticed we were not doing well on the work-life balance category. So last year in January of 2014, we launched something called One Simple Thing. And we encouraged everyone in the company, and what was really important was this is from top down, to choose just one small thing that they were going to do every week for themselves. For me, I don't know how many of you are addicted to your phones and to email. So my one simple thing, I have one device. How many people have two devices to separate work from? So I didn't want to do the two device thing. I wanted to just have one device. But I would find that when that little email box comes up, how many of you just have to read it? You can't just let it sit there. You want to see what that email is? I found that I would constantly be checking my email, and I'd end up, if I got something that I was frustrated about, and you're getting it at 8 o'clock at night, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then you're mad at yourself that you're reading it, because then you're distracted from whatever else you should be doing. So I started this thing where I turn off the sync of my email. So it's very easy. You just go into your settings and you uncheck the box. And when I leave the office at 5:30 and I take the PATH train back to Hoboken, the first thing I do is go into my email and I turn it off. And I don't turn it back on until the next morning. And it is amazing how you really forget about work when that little box is not coming up. And you're just focusing on other things that matter to you in your life. And my team knows that I'm not available. And they know if something happens and they really need me to just call me or to just text me. And I will tell you, in the 18 months of doing this, there's only been one time that they had to reach out to me on a weekend. I work in media. We're not brain surgeons. We're not saving lives. It's very rare that something's happening that's really, truly urgent. But I think in today's connected world, a lot of people think everything is urgent. So that was my one simple thing. Some of our executives have one simple things of just working out an extra day a week. There's a girl on my team who just wants to go to lunch and get a manicure once a week. It's just something that whatever makes you happy, and I would encourage everyone in here to think about what your one simple thing could be. So one of the other things that I've just learned is, being a woman in this work world. So Google is 70% male. And I'm fortunate that I am on the sales side. This is more the tech side, and we've shared all these numbers publicly because we really want to call to the forefront what a problem it is that we are 70% male. And I honestly never felt any work bias in my career until about 2 years ago for being a female. And ever since then, I've really made it my passion, and that's why it was such an honor to come here to make sure I'm coming to events like this and supporting other women and really networking and helping each other. Because what we found at Google is that unconscious bias is just prevalent everywhere. And unconscious bias they're hidden reflexive preferences that shape most people's work views and can profoundly affect how welcoming and open a workplace is to different people and ideas. And what's very interesting about unconscious bias is that the concept begins with a very dismal fact. Everyone has a little bit of racist or sexist bias. Everyone. And if you think that you don't, and you think you're immune, I would encourage you to Google the implicit association test. And you can take the test for yourself, and it empirically measures people's biases. Now, my mother worked while I was growing up. I'm a woman in the workforce. I took it, and I came up as having female gender bias. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, how is that possible? I'm a working woman. I support other women. But I think it gets back to the deep-rooted things of values and maybe environments and just things that have been around you and the way you were raised that you might not even realize that these biases exist. And the fabulous thing about it is that there's a positive side to this. The more we make ourselves aware of the role that the unconsciousness plays in our decision making, and the more we try to force others to really confront these biases, there's a greater chance of overcoming these hidden preferences. So these things are not unchangeable. We're not slaves to this bias. We can easily change it, but we really have to bring it to the forefront. And it's important that we do, because diversity is good business. You've heard some metrics before, but when you look at just the business issues, it's proven that when you have a diverse workforce, it's better for creativity and innovation. It's better for attracting and retaining talent. It's better for reputation. There's the legal implications. As I said, in the tech industry, we have major problems, and there are many government offices and labor departments looking at tech saying, what are you going to do to diversify your workforce? So there's a little bit of a push from there, but then there's also just fairness issues and really ensuring access and opportunity for everyone and making sure that your workforce looks like your consumers, which is extremely important. And if that's not motivation enough, there's business implications. There's a McKinsey global study that says companies with gender diversity are 15% more likely to outperform. So you're literally leaving money on the table when you are not creating a diverse workforce and making sure that you have strong women in your workforce. So Google is very committed to diversity. It's interesting with unconscious bias. We've had half of our 55,000 employees, we have 5,000 employees here in New York, have gone through our unconscious bias training. And it's been fascinating to just see how people really call it out in action. So when we're doing performance reviews, when someone says something, male, female, whatever it might be, people say, that sounds biased to me. And we'll have a discussion about it. And it's not going to change the world overnight, but we really believe that by bringing that to the forefront, we'll at least shift the conversation. And over time, people will realize the biases that they have. And it's been interesting by opening the dialogue and making people feel comfortable about it. Many men have come forward and say, I'm sure I'm doing things that I don't even realize that I'm doing. Please tell me when I do it. So I saw that there's a session later that talks about finding your inner voice. And I was very encouraged to see that because I think it's important to make sure that we're using our voices and we're bringing these things to the forefront. And we have realized what really makes a difference. And again, this gets back to one of the important reasons of being here, are role models. And role models really expanding. And when you're looking at your company, what images are on the walls? What kind of videos are you doing on social integration? What is being put out that people are seeing? And are you showing that there's role models for people to look up to within the company? And then empathy. And I think that's what the bias really brings to the forefront of just having some empathy and seeing someone else, seeing yourself in someone else in order to help them. So those are just a couple of thoughts of things that I've noticed. I also wanted to, just being in the tech space, emphasize right now, especially some of you that might be in transition of thinking about job changes, it is such an exciting time for disruption. And we at Google talk about being uncomfortably excited about the change and disruption that you can bring, and because it is uncomfortable whenever you're bringing disruption. But how many people have used Airbnb in here? Anyone use Airbnb? Okay. How many people have used Uber? Okay. And what about Facebook? How many people are on Facebook? I'm sure everyone in here is on Facebook. Yes. So when you look at in 2015, Uber is the world's largest taxi company, and they own no vehicles. Okay. Facebook is the world's most popular media company, and they create no content. Alibaba is the most valuable retailer. They're out of China. They have no inventory. They have no stores. Airbnb is the world's largest accommodation provider, and they own no real estate. So I just encourage everyone in here to think about what technology can do. When we talk about changing business at Google, if we're talking about, take the automotive industry, we don't want to take a car and make it 5 miles per gallon more efficient. We want to make it 100. And you want to 10x everything and just flip industries on their head. And these companies are all examples of how they're doing that. So I just encourage you to think differently, think about disruption, and think about the possibilities that technology can bring. Because a lot of these companies have really only come to the forefront in the last 5 years. And there is a lot of job creation happening in tech, and we need women, and we need diversity. So just in closing, I'd like to encourage everyone in this room to really think of your one simple thing for balance in your life and setting your boundaries and what that means for you. Bring bias to the forefront with your voice. Take risks. And most importantly, help each other. Events like this are extremely important, and I'm grateful to be here because it is through the events like this that we will make change happen in the future. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has questions. So I can work from anywhere, which is a blessing and a curse, the power of the internet. For the most part, I am in our New York City office. I get into the office around 8:45, 9 a.m., and I try and leave the office every day between 5 and 5:30. It depends on what my day is like. From here, I will be flying to San Francisco, so I will be in San Francisco for the next 2 days, but I also have a rule when I fly during the work day. So that way on Friday when I get back, I will be on the ground by 3 o'clock and at my beach house by 5, so that I'm not missing out on some of that personal time. And I am fortunate, and I recognize that Google very much has a philosophy of just get your work done. So if I am traveling, I can easily work from home in order to get that personal time back, and I have no problem taking it back. And I think that that's something that people should also just ask for it. Not enough people ask. I even have friends now a friend of mine who works at McKinsey, and she's having her first child, and she just went into her boss and said, I'm going to work from home 2 days a week. And they just said, okay. I think it's, again, as we keep raising things to the forefront, you're not going to get it unless you ask, and it's important that you ask in order to set those parameters of what's going to work for you. Yeah, no, I think it's changing. So the question was, is turning off your email something that's becoming more prevalent in the industry versus frowned upon? I do think there is a lot more discussion in corporate America of mindfulness, of really being able to detach, because they're realizing people are just so connected. And there's actually very negative implications to always being connected when you're on vacation and you're responding to something that you don't have all the background on, and you can sometimes make matters worse. So I do think there is a mentality shifting there. But I also think a lot of people that I know will do the 2-device thing, and they say that they leave the other device to the side on the weekend. For me, I didn't want 2 devices. I'd rather just shut it off. And you know what? It's very easy to go in and just swipe down, and the emails refresh if you really want to see them. But it's nice to not have that little box there.
What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I think it was a test. So the beauty of these things, and that's what I'm saying with a one simple thing, is you test and see how it's going. And I did feel uncomfortable and thought there was a little fear of missing out. They say FOMO, of what am I going to miss out on by doing this? But it really just takes a couple of days before you realize, this really isn't that big of a deal. So we talk about doing experiments. That's what we encourage a lot of people to do. I agree with you, and I think that when you were just talking about the evolution of men sitting at their desk late hours, earlier in my career when I worked in radio, I worked insane hours. My job was my life. And I crashed and burned hard. But it was a great lesson. And thank God I did it at 26, 27. And I recall moving to my next job and being with my mother, and she hugged me when we were walking in the parking lot of the Willowbrook Mall on Columbus Day. and she was hugging me, and I was like, why are you hugging me? And she said, you're a totally different person. Because I just finally let go. But it took a lot to let go, and it took me getting to that breaking point of really just coming home and being like sitting there saying, God, I'm not happy. And then accepting that and walking out of that office was hard. They threw me out because I went in and said that I wasn't happy, and I got thrown out. And I remember going home, and I remember being like, oh my God, what did I just do? But then just feeling the sense of calm and relief, knowing that I would figure it out and I would find a better environment for myself. And I think that's the permission and acceptance of knowing there's so much opportunity out there, and you just have to believe in yourself, and you can get it done. Yeah, I think all small business owners should be on all social media platforms, because this consumer wants to engage with you the way they want to engage with you, and you need to be there for them. They're completely in control. If they're on Twitter, if they're on Facebook, whatever the different social platform might be, Google+, you want to make sure that you're having a presence there. In the online world, people are raising their hands. Someone's searching for your business. They're asking a question. 15% of the queries we get in search on Google every day, we've never seen before. So that's how much new search is coming on, that people are always asking questions. So you want to make sure that you're putting out content that when that person raises their hand, you're the one giving them the answer. So I would recommend having a presence on all. Google Plus is the platform. It's really the spine that kind of brings all Google products together. That's the way we describe it. Hangouts is just one feature where you can do live streams and engage with people that way. You could host, if you have certain intellect or knowledge that you can share with people, you could host a hangout, invite people to join in, and have a platform where you could share ideas. It's interesting because if you follow tech space, there's a couple of platforms that have been on the rise in the last couple of months. One called Periscope and the other one's called Meerkat. And they're these live streaming platforms. They're very simple. G Plus was always the same live streaming platform, but I was in Austin, Texas for a conference, and people were walking around with their selfie stick and their phone, and you could see that they're talking about how they're walking down the street in Austin, and there's all these little heads on the bottom that are participating and asking questions. And I was thinking, who on earth would want to join this thing? Like, the guy's just walking down the street in Austin, but people are interested and they're engaged, and they want to see what other people are doing. There's people who are now watching someone just cook a meal in their kitchen. There's people that are doing it, granted it's infringing on rights, but when the big boxing match just happened, there were people using Periscope from the boxing match, so you could join in, see their Periscope feed, and see what they have going on live. So those are, some kind of day-to-day implications, but I think that there's probably a broader implication of, especially with women here, if you have advice to share and you want to make some of your more local groups a little bit, have a bigger reach, you could use these platforms like Hangouts, like Periscope, like Meerkat, where you could invite people from around the country in order to share ideas. Mindfulness, a few aspects of it. She was asking my opinions on mindfulness, but then also, is this a trend in corporate America? This is a huge trend in corporate America. There was a big 60 Minutes story done on it that's a few minutes long. You can find it on, if you Google or go onto the CBS website, and I would encourage people to watch it. I think that there's broader implications for mindfulness, so I think people are just more productive when they're managing their stress more effectively. And we have yoga rooms on site. We have you see yoga rooms in the San Francisco airport, in the Austin airport. So I think that there is an overarching trend all around to just be more mindful and to work on stress release. There's also huge implications for healthcare. So the less stressed people are, the better their immune systems are. They're not getting sick. So they work more effectively, but they're also saving on healthcare. So it's a big business, and it's an important business. So as much as I think some companies are in for it just to be altruistic. There's also a business implication that they're choosing to do that. In regards, one of the things I started doing a few years ago, I was at a training, and I just, I wasn't feeling as productive every day, and I'd go in and out of a lot of meetings, which can happen in our world. We become very meeting centric. People can just go into my calendar and throw in meetings. So for 1 week, and this was based on an executive coach who recommended I do this, for 1 week I wrote down every single thing I did at work every half an hour, and every meeting that I went to, and I wrote, and I also I put in, like, was I mindful in that meeting? Was I paying attention? Did I add any value? And really evaluated where I was spending my time, and became a little bit more bullish in protecting my calendar. And then when people would invite me to meetings, I knowing the evaluation that I had done of where I was most productive and what meetings I should be going to and not going to, I would push people to explain to me what role they wanted me to play, and figure out if it was really necessary for me to be there. And I think that's a little bit more of the fear of missing out too. Sometimes you feel like you have to be everywhere because you don't want to miss out on what might be happening. But the reality is, if you're going and you're distracted because you're thinking about something else, no one's winning. So it's better to really think about how you're using your time and how you can be more alert in that moment. So I think that the biggest thing that's happened there, and on the unconscious bias level, is one, all of our executives are bought into it, so everyone constantly talks about it, and it's having the dialogue and bringing it to the forefront. So by making this a company-wide initiative, people feel empowered in every single meeting that we're in, whether we're hiring people, whether we're talking about planning an event, what speakers we're having. Everyone sits there and makes comments of, do we have diversity? Is there a bias on why we're bringing this person in versus that person? And it gives everyone the freedom to talk about it openly. So it's not a perfect science. I don't think we ever want to get into the business of types of quotas or something like that along those lines of being very rigid. It's really just an awareness and questioning every single thing that we do and making sure that we are calling any biases to the front. Yes, absolutely. So the first yoga class I ever went to was at work, actually. When I worked in radio, they had it. So, well, that was not at Google. I was when I worked in radio, they were starting a pilot program, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, and got into it then. So that was the first one I ever went to. But I would say you need to find the HR people. So our HR people are called people operations, actually, because it's all about operations of our people. But that's exactly who I would go to. If you can get to the top of HR, they're the ones who are really tasked with setting the culture and opening those doors and getting the executives. They're responsible for getting those senior level executives to say, yes, we should be doing this. I would take advantage of the fact that there is a big trend on mindfulness right now. Use articles and things that are being written about it. That 60-minute segment is fantastic. And I would push from that direction. But in my opinion, HR is where you have to go. Yeah, you're welcome.
You have a question over here?
Yeah. So we have a bunch of, we call them ERGs, employee resource groups. And a lot of people work on them. We encourage in our company 20% projects. So outside of your actual day-to-day job, you could spend 20% of your week working on other projects that just help the company in other ways. Could be something specific in tech, or it could be something for diversity in our ERG programs. And we have a very robust Women at Google chapter in every office. And we host all different kinds of sessions. So some of the most recent ones are on finances and managing your finances, from 401ks to investments. Others have been on, should I go get the MBA? Is it worth it? Is it worth the debt that I might take on? It varies depending on the office and what basically is funneled up in terms of what we want. But we are actually realizing, though, and this is something that's just coming to the forefront more, is that what people really want is these employee resource groups to help make change happen on a higher level. So we've sort of done that education phase. Now they want a little activism to figure out how we can really make the broader change happen to promote diversity in the company. Yeah, so she's asking specifically about the automotive industry, and she's trying to implement change where women feel comfortable going and buying and negotiating for a car. So I think the automotive industry that's a behemoth. It's really complicated. Speaking from the person who went to buy a car and went to 3 dealerships, had people not even have a car there for me to test drive, and had to bring daddy in. I'm not kidding. I had to bring my father with me, and this is 3-4 years ago. And I think, so I mean, from that angle, I think it's awareness. So I would go after the dealers and getting them to understand the bias that they have, that when we were sitting there, they're talking to my father and not me. regardless of how many times my father is saying she's the one buying the car. So I think it's just heightened awareness. I really do. I don't think they realize how bad it is. And I agree with you, women can be their own worst enemy, but it's bringing to the forefront of you're empowered to do this, but I think it's what you're getting back on the back end. It's just contentious on both sides. So how do you use education on both sides to kind of break through that contention? And I think that's awareness usually accomplishes a lot, quite frankly. And that's usually when we just bring things to the forefront, make people aware, and just keep pushing certain initiatives. Change will happen over time. But that's a tricky one, really complicated. I applaud you for trying to tackle it, and I might need your services in August.
Any additional questions?
Okay. Well, thank you for your time again. I was thrilled to be here, and I really hope that you all take an opportunity to get to know each other.